What is your name? Anatoly. Where are we now? In the eastern direction of Ukraine. Let's go back a little to the past. How did the full-scale Russian invasion begin for you? At home with my wife and daughter. Woke up in the morning, called my mother, said that their city was being shelled. There were flights. I began to pick up the news and found out that the Russians had attacked us. Where were you? What city was it? A village? The city, the regional center was in it. What were your next steps? I gathered my wife and daughter, packed their things, took them to my parents, collected my things, and at 10 in the morning I was already in the military room.
Зібрав свої речі і в 10 часов ранку вже був у військкоматі районному.
Did you fight before that, before 1922? Yes, I took part in anti-terrorist operations. I was in the battles, also took part, defended the Mariupol direction completely. Remember the first contact with Russian occupants after their full-scale invasion. Where was it? The first contact was in the Kherson direction. We were sent there to keep the defense around Mykolaiv. Our first contacts were on the roads when they made an ambush and their vehicles just drove, not giving us anything, Jens. They just tried to bypass us.
І просто їхня техніка їхала, не даючи нам ні спротиву, питалися обійти нас просто-напросто.
That's where the first fights began. At that time, you were in the role of infantryman, grenade launcher. We were in the role of scout. Our group was an anti-terrorist group. We had a rapid response.
Наша група була протидиверсійна група,
We were the first to go to the point and take up defense, plus we helped our command to carry out combat operations, data reconnaissance. Because we received intelligence from ordinary people who wanted to cooperate with us, who wanted a free country.
Які з нами хотіли співпрацювати, які хотіли так же само вільну країну.
Local. They gave us the columns, where they were going, how much equipment, how much of everything, just passed it to the command. The command then made a decision whether to send us or someone else. That is, your task was essentially to identify the enemy and transfer data. Destruction was not included in the program. Yes, our main task was to destroy the city itself, along with the police units, along with the military police units. We did more of this.
Саме місто, то наша задача була їх знищити, виявити разом із підрозділами поліції, разом із підрозділами військової поліції. Займалися більшості цим.
We also identified drove cars, looked for the guys on the way, where their equipment is, chased their columns, guided our artillery. Do you think it was necessary to stop their roads in a direct fight? Yes, there were cases when their roads were tried to enter. There were losses among our soldiers when they found cars and everything else. It was necessary to lead the fighters in different conditions.
Були втрати серед наших військових, де коли знаходили машини і все остальне, приходилось вести бойові дії в різних умовах.
They have a lot of professional army, and the first columns were a professional army, very heavy.
І перші оці колони були професійної армії, дуже тяжолі.
Were you captured at that moment? Yes, at that time capture meant a lot to us because every soldier could carry a lot of information on himself. And since we were not well aware of what was going on then, the captives had to be there and give us information.
Так як ми не сильно були обізнані в цьому всьому, що взагалі відбувається, то полонені обов'язково повинні були бути і давати нам інформацію.
Can you think of any interesting characters? Did they behave differently? Did they give some interesting information? Our task was to bring him, and then the command was already engaged in this interrogation of data, interrogation of them, and everything else. Counterintelligence also came, and the security service came to us, also interrogated the guys.
Допитом даних, допитом їхніх позивних і все остальне. Також ж приїжджали і контррозвідка, і СБУ до нас заїжджали, теж допитували хлопців.
Did they surrender to you themselves, or did they just not understand that you were there? They did not understand where we were. They often got lost, often just went out on us themselves. There were such people who took part in battles.
Часто просто виходили на нас самі. Були такі, що і в боях бралися люди. Тобто...
At that time, was there any fear or maybe a misunderstanding? What will happen next? We were told that they are the so-called Second Army of the world. You are completely different.
Засоби масової інформації на ворожі, так, нам говорили, що вони там так звана друга армія світу, виявилося зовсім по-інакше.
How did you overcome this psychological barrier at that time? Or maybe even fear? Guys, we helped each other. Most of us were guys who had previously participated in combat operations, gave support to each other. Each of us was confident that he would help pull out and just did their job, their protection.
Тобто ми кожен один в одного були впевнені в тому, що він поможе, витягне, якщо що. І просто виконували свою роботу, свій захист.
If we had stepped up there, they would have gone much further. We had no option but to stand and stand until the end. How much did the local population not want to meet with the occupiers? Were there all those who waited? There were all those who waited, but most of the people from the east of Ukraine, people who really wanted our return, even under the pretext that they could be caught or that they could be tortured, they still worked with us.
Люди, які дійсно хотіли нашого повернення, і навіть під приводом того, що їх могли там зловити, чи про передачу даних, чи то, що їх там могли закатувати, вони все-таки працювали.
There was a grandmother who called us and said on the phone, guys, I see a column. I think there are so many vehicles in the village, and women with small children who also passed on to us. And people very quickly, practically on the internet, learned to recognize what kind of vehicles, what is going on, and just to pass on information to us. Were there any cases when the local population, as the Russians said, surrendered to the occupiers of the patriots of Ukraine? Yes, unfortunately, some people still gave up our positions, and there were shootings, guys who were many captured, but there were those who helped.
Все-таки здавали наші позиції, і були і розстріли, і хлопці, яких багато полонили, але були і такі, що допомагали.
For example, an acquaintance from Kherson Hospital, who himself is a Kherson resident, was injured in the fighting. Just the head of the department himself was changed into a civilian and buried by the occupiers, so that later, when the guys recovered, they could come out and help them come out. Many guys who were injured in a month or two just broke through the front, back to us to continue the fighting.
Багато хлопців, які були поранені, через місяць, через два просто проривалися через фронт до нас обратно.
Someone remained there as a drug group who formed a company. They also informed us. Someone broke through to us, then again with weapons with us, shoulder to shoulder.
Так же само і нам повідомляли. Хтось проривався до нас, то знову за зброю з нами пліч-опліч.
You say that women with children are also seen. When children help mothers fight against the occupiers, what emotions were there? Well, it was hard to imagine that women, small children, help soldiers, guys to burn the occupier on the one hand. You are glad that the country is behind you on the other hand. They should not have seen it.
Хлопцям, що палити окупанта. З одної сторони, ти радий, що за тебе стоїть країна, а з іншої сторони, це їм Вони не повинні були цього бачити.
But it turned out that the enemy still went for how many kilometers, and people are a little shocked. The Ukrainian army did everything with the help of our allies with weapons so that the Russians would leave Kherson and retreat.
Наших союзників зброєю все зробила, щоб росіяни покинули Херсон і відступили.
Do you remember these events? What emotions did it all happen with? Yes, we were picked up around 1 a.m. Gathered group gathered with us sappers and said we need to move forward. Our idea was to go forward with the fights, but we were told that the occupier was retreating.
Сказали, треба просуватися вперед. Наша думка була, що з боями йти вперед. Але нам сказали, що окупант відступає.
We just did not believe everything. On the first day, we walked about 5 kilometers deep into the territory, and every step was, for us, we thought that now there will be some ambush or something else. We just did not believe that they would give up their positions so easily. On the first night, we also got stuck in the landing. Because it was already night, it was dangerous to walk on mined territories.
Першу ж ніч ми також залягли в посадки, тому що вже була ніч, було опасно йти по замінованих територіях.
In 2 kilometers, we heard their blindages explode. It was a signal that they were retreating. Before that, there was just disbelief that their troops were giving up their positions so easily.
Дійсно тим, що вони відступають. До того було просто невірення в те, що все-таки їхні десантні війська так просто здають нам позиції, так просто відступають від даних рубежів.
Thank you. This method is simple. Everyone who was there, all the armed forces, volunteers, and civilians worked well for this. Do you remember the Antonovsky Bridge itself? They were retreating along the Antonovsky Bridge, right? Yes, when we arrived there, the local population told us that some time ago, the last ferries left. We went to check the railway station, found their equipment, found their many vehicles, which they left broken, and also found communication devices.
Железнодорожній міст, знайшли їхні спорядження, знайшли їхні багато техніки, якої вони поставляли розбитої, також познаходили засоби зв'язку.
On the Antonovsky Bridge itself, when we went up to their upper blindages, we found their Stinger, and there were a lot of our Ukrainian uniforms. Indeed, there were a lot of purely packed Ukrainian uniforms. That is, they were dressed in our uniform for sabotage work. Yes, a lot, and even today this is happening, a lot of pixel uniforms that they wear, as well as different manufacturers. There are differences, but very small.
Навіть досі це все відбувається. Багато піксельної форми, яку вони носять, так же само і різних виробників. Є відмінності, але дуже малі.
In your opinion, what is the reason? Even if the Russians are in our uniform, what can be the reason? How to understand who is in front of you, the Russians or not? If these are assault groups, then they always have a white or red bandage on their legs. The red bandage is their commander, and the white bandage is the personnel. If a soldier is wounded with a red bandage, he will be evacuated first.
Командир, а біле – це особовий склад. Якщо з красною пов'язкою буде ранений військовий, то його будуть в першу чергу евакувати.
He will be evacuated, he will be pulled out of there, and the rest will be just people who will gain experience in their army. Can they use our bandages? What are they used for? And just pass through our territory with our bandages and our uniform. Yes, at the moment most of us know each other by face, also informed when groups approach. That is, if the left group comes with unknown calls, the guys immediately understand who it is and what it is and just start shooting.
Ходить ліва група із невідомими позивними. Хлопці сразу ж розуміють, хто це і що це, і просто починають стріляти.
Moreover, at the moment, they are already afraid to do their job. And such a factor as the Ukrainian language, for Ivanachek, a language that is not understood, how do you think can it be used to... Yes, we had such a position where we fought against their group, and their chief with a red bandage spoke in pure Ukrainian.
Проти їхньої групи, і їхній главний з красною пов'язкою говорив на чистому українській мові.
It was a group from the Ukraine.
Це була група, де...
Why is it important to speak Ukrainian at the moment? Yes, at first we did not even believe that we thought that some special unit was coming out, or our guides, but we fulfilled these obligations and gave us a reason to open fire on the enemy.
Ми думали, може якийсь спецпідрозділ виходить, чи наші хлопці там, але чисто ці пов'язки і дали нам привід для того, щоб відкрити вогонь по противнику.
How did you communicate with the local population, as well as with the evacuated territories? Yes, we went to the village. People did not believe very much, immediately began to run to us, hugged us, grandmothers, especially cried, children who carried flowers.
Зразу ж почали багато збігатися до нас, обнімали нас, бабушки особливо плакали, діти, які квіти несли.
We had a pickup truck which was completely full of flowers in the back. They also gave us food, although not they, but we had to give them. The man we spent the night with, because we arrived late in the evening, also brought us borscht immediately with lard, said, "Here, guys, this is Ukrainian borscht for you already in the liberated territory of Ukraine."
Приїхали пізно вечором. Також все нам там і борщ приніс зразу ж з салом. Каже, от хлопці, це для вас борщ український, уже на українській території, на звільненій території України.
It was very nice of them, and we went straight to bed, almost on our beds, and we went somewhere to breathe because it was very hard. But yes, people met with tears, cried a lot, did not believe a lot, plus I understood that they did not have a normal connection, and when we let them call their relatives, they cried and cried.
Плюс я так розумів, що в них там не було нормального зв'язку, і коли ми їм дали там подзвонити до своїх рідних, вони там в трубку прям ридали і плакали.
They said that they are on Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian flag is waving over their house. This is our modern story, thanks to you. Very often now we hear talks about the counteroffensive, and many people imagine that Ukrainian soldiers stand in line.
Дуже часто зараз ми чуємо розмови про контрнаступ, так, і в багатьох людей уявлення, що це українські військові стають в один ряд, так.
And with the cries of glory they begin to advance, and the enemies flee. Well, for those who are not well known, because of pseudo-experts, even on television, they think that it will be an easy passage. And in your fights in the south and in the east again, our counteroffensives show something completely different. Tell us about the expectations of this counteroffensive and what happened there. What do we pay for?
Показує зовсім інше. Розкажіть очікування від цього контрнаступу і що відбувалося там, за рахунок чого нам, яку ціну ми платимо?
We pay a lot every fight, even for one position. It can be the loss of your brother or a serious injury to a person. This is a great job that must be done. This is the technique that must be used.
Тяжеле поранення у людини. Це велика праця, яка повинна бути проведена. Це техніка, яка повинна бути задіяна.
And it does not always coincide with what you plan. Sometimes it is successful. Sometimes it is not successful. But every meter of our territory is someone's life.
Кожна відбитий метр території.
Infantrymen, artillerymen, tankers, scouts, every meter is given very hard because their army is also professional and they are preparing for this.
Розвідників. Кожен метр дається дуже тяжко, тому що армія їхня так же само професійна і...
That is, they equip the blindage, equip the positions and replace their positions. There is no longer this march that was at the beginning. No, there is already a clear line that fights against us and does not let us in.
Ні. Уже стоїть чиста лінія, яка веде бій проти нас.
It is very difficult for us to break through at the moment. It is very difficult for us to break through their positions and also their artillery, which works very hard in our positions. Now we are in the east of Ukraine. What is the difference between the war with the Russian aggressor? Is there a difference between the east and the north? Yes, their artillery began to fire less at us, and there were no night attacks as before. We see that they have decreased the number of soldiers who are defending positions.
Причому, що нема цих ночних атак, як раніше було. Бачимо, що в них зменшилась кількість військових, які заступають на позиції, заступають на це все.
And there are very few pro-Ukrainian people, but very few, most of them are from Russia. It's just sad that we are fighting, and there are people who come from behind and say that you were beaten and killed.
Печально за це. Що ми воюємо, а є люди навіть, які приїжджають із тила в нас і говорять там, що от там вас хохли ще не вбили, там ще що-то таке, типа.
Look, we are fighting for what? We are fighting for Ukrainian land. If there are grudges on Ukrainian land, we can destroy it or drive it away.
Гризуни, чи як ми їх називаємо, нечисть. Ми можемо що з нею зробити? З нечистю? Або знищити, або прогнати.
Drive it away. We are not fighting peaceful violence. We are fighting military. Did you have any dreams before the full-scale war with the Russian-Ukrainian war? Did you want to be a soldier? How to find yourself in civilian life? I wanted to find myself in civilian life. I wanted to open my own business, and there were earnings for that, plus my daughter was too little. I wanted to raise a child, see how she takes the first steps, but it happened that the occupiers did not let us see all this. Friends, I wish you to return home with a victory, to free your daughter from your wife as soon as possible, and to revive your business that you dreamed of.
Швидше обійняти свою дочку і дружину і відродити, скажімо так, свій бізнес, про який ви мріяли до...
Thank you for the conversation. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes.